Well, we're back with another one here, and I'm looking at this and I'm thinking we're going to be talking about butterflies.
Yep, you're right.
Okay.
That we are. We're going to be talking about the Monarch Butterfly.
Okay.
And
that's a pretty common one.
Well, yeah, it's one of the most fantastic designed one there is.
Okay.
Okay. We're going to basically, it's a creature that has two lives. Okay. It has two lives. I mean, basically, it's like a believer in Jesus Christ. Before he believed in Jesus Christ, he had a different life. Well, we're going to be talking about that with this. I mean, they had a caterpillar, and all of a sudden, this caterpillar turned into a beautiful butterfly. All right? I like to think of that as myself. Oh, I'm only kidding.
No, that's awesome.
All right. One thing that's important about them is that they are on, they have to have milkweed plants to survive. Right?
That particular plant.
Just that plant. But they have to get on this plant to lay their eggs to make sure that they can survive. So they basically, within a mile, you'll have the monarch butterflies flying around, going everywhere, and all of a sudden they got to start sniffing, they've got to figure it out, and within a mile they can pick up a milkweed plant, okay? So once they pick it up, all right, they've got to land on it. Now, they've got very sensitive feet, very sensitive antennas. They got a proboscis, basically a sucking tube. And they've got to do everything to make sure that this is exactly the right plant. So all of a sudden, they land on it. They start scratching it. Okay, well, it's the right, it feels right. And then it tastes it, which is the proboscis, which basically is a sucking tube. Taste it, well, it seems right. It feels the texture of it. Feels right. Everything, well, I can lay my eggs on it. So
now, does it do a lot of eggs, or just a little, or just one
at a time? But then up to 500 eggs.
Wow! So it literally sits there and plants up to 500 eggs.
One plant, but each plant gets one egg.
So one per plant.
Yeah.
But up to 500.
Yeah.
Per butterfly.
They're constantly moving around. Okay.
Now, that's why they're moving around, is looking for milkweed to lay those eggs a lot of times. That's interesting.
Exactly. Now this one here, I mean, this is a pinhead. I mean, it's about the size of a pinhead. It's on the underneath side of the upper leaves of the milkweed, and that's where they stay at. And then,
so they're naturally protected from the elements and everything.
Exactly. So then all of a sudden, 2-3 days later, it busts out. Well, he's a hungry little critter. All right, what's the first thing he eats?
Its own thing.
Yep, he eats it up, basically, and he is an eating machine, and all he does is eat. Remember, he was a pinhead, and he keeps eating and eating and eating, and he starts eating the milkweed. Now, the funny thing is, this milkweed plant is toxic. It's poisonous. It's got some poison, and he eats it. Now, what it does, it helps him in the future. He don't know it, but that's what he likes, and that's what he eats. But it helps him in the future protect him from other animals. Because the butterfly, when he becomes a butterfly, it's basically, if they taste it, it tastes horrible. So they know not to go after this orange butterfly because it doesn't taste good, and it's, they basically won't eat it. Now they got to watch it. Like you see this here, they basically, if the milkweed has got too much of this in it, it could gum up their mouths and they can die. And a lot of little caterpillars die, but they keep eating. See how he eats in a circle?
Sure.
But he stays away from where the real thick line is. There's a thick line in the leaf. Well, that's where the extra heavy toxic is and the gumminess is, and they try to stay away from that. So all of a sudden he's eating and he's growing, and all of a sudden, get to the next point, he gets bigger and he loses his skin. What's he do with the skin?
Eat it.
Eat it. Yep, he eats it. So then
that's hilarious.
And this goes on and on and on. He eats it, gets bigger, eats it again, gets bigger, eats it again, and finally then he's full grown and he's ready to die. All right? Because he doesn't know it, but all of a sudden he has to build himself basically casket. He's building himself his own casket.
So they get really big, and when they get to a certain point that they do this, they just have to because they're too big.
Well, they basically, that's what's in their genetics. That's what they're supposed to. I mean, basically, Jesus Christ, when he created them that they get big enough, they're done. Now they get into a cocoon. So now they weave themselves into a cocoon. Now, this is the fabulous part. He gets inside this cocoon, all right, this little caterpillar that eats all day and crawls around all the time, goes inside there. All of a sudden, he's liquefied. Liquid. He's totally nothing but liquid inside of here.
Okay.
And then once he's liquid, and then he comes out.
Okay.
And once he comes out, okay, he becomes a butterfly. So he's a completely different animal.
So he transforms. He literally transforms from one animal to another.
Exactly. So he's transforming in himself into a beautiful butterfly. He was a caterpillar that ate leaves, and now he's a beautiful butterfly. It's like us. When all of a sudden we realize that Jesus Christ comes down and touches us and gives us grace, we become a new life, a life in Jesus. So same thing with them. And this butterfly comes out, and he's got to eat. And the thing is, we've got to eat. And at that point, he's got to get, when he gets out of here, he's got to get his probatus, which is his feeding tube. Where do I have that at? Hold on. His feeding tube, basically, and on a feeding tube, and what he can see is that he can see a flower, and he sees it different than we see it, like it's a dandelion or something, but he can see where the nectar is in it.
Ah, so he wants to start sucking that nectar up.
Right. So all of a sudden,
He loves that sweet juice.
basically, he can start flying and going around, and then he starts flying, and he's a beautiful butterfly out there, and he lives 2 to 6 weeks. Now, so he's living.
He obviously remembers that taste or that smell and all of the milkworm from being a caterpillar.
Right.
Okay.
So then, so sudden he's flying around. He doesn't taste good. So when the birds see him, they're thinking, nope, we got to stay away from that one. He doesn't taste right. But he lives 2 to 6 weeks. So then all of a sudden he dies, and the same thing happens again. He lays a lot of eggs. Those eggs grow up, and they become butterflies, and they go to 6 weeks because the first ones start in like March, and then they go to the middle of April, May, and then all of a sudden the next ones go up to May, June, and then June, July, and then all of a sudden gets into August. And then all of a sudden, they grow. And then all of a sudden, it starts being fall. Changes the season, changes summer, changes the sun, and all of a sudden, at that point, then it goes into the cocoon. And when it comes out of the butterfly, but it comes out of the larger butterfly, a larger monarch butterfly.
So
It's
the
much
in
larger.
the fall we get larger ones.
Right. And
Okay.
and like I was telling you, they live 2 to 6 weeks, right? 2 to 6 weeks, 2 to 6 weeks. Now, the final one in the fall lives 8 months.
Oh,
How
wow.
does it know to do that?
That's crazy. So they go through these cycles all spring, summer.
They lay
and then
eggs.
fall.
All of a sudden, in the fall, it becomes bigger, a little bit larger monarch butterfly, and it can live for 8 months. And it's basically birth. He can't give birth anymore. He can't have get pregnant or anything like that. So all of a sudden, he's shut off from that. At that point, then he can't do that. So he starts traveling. He has to travel. He has to migrate back to where all of them migrate in South America.
Okay, so they go south.
All of them go south. So basically, they go south, and at that point, where are we at? This part here, you see them all. They can go from up in parts of the United States. Everything they fly, and they fly all the way down to Mexico, to mountains in Mexico, about 10,000 feet up, and they hibernate. Now, remember, their reproductive organs are turned off. They're totally turned off. So now they go down there to hibernate. If you see here, from that,
I did not know that. So they hibernate.
you see all these
Yeah.
are millions and millions of monarch butterflies that are down there in the mountains, down here, and that's where they hibernate. So when they do that for the whole winter. Now, does anybody know why it happened? No. They don't know why they go down there. They know it's something in their genetics. Now, remember, like I was saying, the butterflies live 2 to 6 weeks, 2 to 6, 2 to 6. And then the last one's 8 months. He goes down there. He's down there for 3, 4 months. All of a sudden, the winter's over. He starts to travel back up, and all of a sudden, right when his hibernation is over, his reproductive organs turn back on.
Amazing.
Just like that, they turn back
Now he
on.
can have kids 8 months later.
So then he gets to his first milkweed he could find somewhere in Texas or something, and starts laying eggs.
And
And then
migrating up.
and he starts migrating right back to where his family was. How would he know where they started from? How would he know from his great grandfather came up from there? How would he know that? The only way is through his genetics, and the only way is intelligent design through Jesus Christ. That's the only way this could have happened.
That's amazing.
So the monarch butterfly, and it's the only butterfly there is that goes down and comes back. The only one that does the double migration back both ways.
Huh.
Okay?
All right.
It's amazing, it's an amazing creature.
All right.
And that's about it. And that, like I was saying, the important thing about it is that that's happened like with me. When I was like 40 years old, or when I was in my 30s, I loved the toxics. Like the caterpillar loved the toxics. I loved to get into all the liquor. I loved to get into all the different things. And all of a sudden, every kind of trouble there was, I got into it. And I always thought that I was God. All right? And I really did. And let me tell you, every commandment I wrote and nothing else. But the thing of it is, like the monarch butterfly, basically God touched me and he changed me. And I'm not a beautiful butterfly, but I mean to tell you, Jesus Christ changed my life. And all I want to do is serve him. And you better know that without him, you're never going to get to heaven.
Well, thank you so much, man. That's awesome. And that is a great comparison. So, and with that, yeah, thank you for listening. We'll catch you.
You're safe.